Have you ever noticed how the very thing that once felt like safety has somehow become your prison? There's something happening beneath the surface when we talk about comfort that most of us miss because we're focused on staying safe, avoiding risk, and maintaining what we know. But what if I told you that the comfort you're protecting is actually the very thing keeping you from the life you really want? In the next few minutes, I'm going to share something that might sound uncomfortable at first, but by the end, you'll understand why your discomfort might actually be your greatest compass pointing toward growth. Stay with me, because this changes everything about how you see comfort, challenge, and the path to a life that truly fulfills you. Picture this. It's Monday morning, and your alarm goes off at the exact same time it has for months, maybe years. You follow the same routine, take the same route to work, order the same coffee, sit in the same chair, and tackle the same types of problems you've been solving for so long you could do them in your sleep. By evening, you're back home, settling into the same spot on the couch, watching the same types of shows, having the same conversations, and falling asleep to wake up and do it all again. There's nothing inherently wrong with routine, but somewhere deep down, you feel it. That quiet voice asking, "Is this it? Is this all there is?" That restless energy that whispers about dreams you've put on hold, adventures you've postponed, and the person you once imagined you'd become. You've created a life that's safe, predictable, and comfortable, but comfortable has somehow become synonymous with unfulfilled. The cycle of comfort isn't just about having routines or enjoying stability. It's something much more subtle and pervasive. It's the way we unconsciously arrange our entire existence around avoiding this comfort, uncertainty, and challenge. It's how we've learned to equate safety with stagnation and security with settling for less than what calls to our deepest selves. This isn't about judgment or criticism. The comfort cycle exists for valid reasons. Your brain is wired to keep you safe, and for most of human history, safety meant survival. Staying with the known, avoiding the unfamiliar, and minimizing risk were literally life or death strategies. But we're living in a different world now, and those same protective mechanisms that once kept us alive are now keeping us from being truly alive. Think about a river that's been flowing in the same path for years. Over time, the water carves deeper and deeper grooves in the earth. The river becomes more efficient at flowing in that exact pattern, but it also becomes more trapped by its own success. The banks get higher, the path gets more entrenched, and eventually, even when conditions change and a new path might serve the river better, it keeps flowing in the same old channel, because that's the path of least resistance. This is what happens to us. We create patterns of thinking, feeling, and acting that were once helpful, maybe even necessary. But over time, these patterns become so deeply grooved that we keep following them automatically, even when they're no longer serving us, even when they're actively preventing us from growing into who we're meant to become. The comfort cycle has several characteristics that make it particularly insidious. First, it's gradual. You don't wake up one day trapped in comfort. It happens slowly, one small compromise at a time, one postponed dream at a time, one maybe later at a time. Second, it's reinforced by everyone around you. Society celebrates comfort, stability, and playing it safe. People will congratulate you for staying in a job you hate because it's secure, or for avoiding risks because it's smart. Third, and perhaps most challenging, is that the comfort cycle often masquerades as contentment. It's easy to convince yourself that you're grateful for what you have, that wanting more is greedy or unrealistic, that feeling restless is just being ungrateful. But there's a profound difference between genuine contentment and resigned comfort. True contentment comes from aligning with your deepest values and expressing your authentic self. Resigned comfort comes from giving up on your dreams and settling for what feels safe. The pain of the comfort cycle isn't usually dramatic. It's the quiet ache of unused potential. It's the sense of watching your life from the sidelines instead of being the main character. It's the growing awareness that time is passing and you're not becoming who you really want to be. It's the fear that you'll reach the end of your life having never truly lived it. But here's what I want you to understand with complete clarity. Recognizing this pattern isn't a sign that something's wrong with you. It's a sign that something's right with you. That restless energy, that sense of there must be more than this, that's your authentic self calling you toward growth. That discomfort with your comfort is actually your inner wisdom trying to wake you up. Let me tell you about Sarah, a woman I know who spent 15 years climbing the corporate ladder in a field she never really chose. She was good at her job, earned a solid salary, had a nice apartment, and by all external measures, she was successful. But every day felt like she was wearing clothes that didn't quite fit, not uncomfortable enough to change, but never quite right either. Sarah's days had become a perfectly orchestrated routine. She could predict what she'd be doing not just tomorrow, but next month, even next year. She'd mastered the art of competent efficiency, but somewhere along the way, she'd lost touch with anything that resembled passion or excitement. Her friends would ask how she was doing, and she'd always say fine or can't complain, and she meant it. There wasn't anything specifically wrong. That was almost the problem. The turning point came during a conversation with her elderly neighbor, Mrs. Chen, who was recovering from surgery. Sarah had been bringing her groceries, and one afternoon, Mrs. Chen asked her a simple question: "What makes you feel most alive?" Sarah realized she couldn't answer. She could tell you what she was responsible for, what she was good at, what paid the bills, but she had no idea what made her feel alive. That night, Sarah sat in her apartment and made a list of the last time she remembered feeling truly excited about something. The list was depressingly short and mostly consisted of things from years ago. She realized she'd been living in a carefully constructed bubble of predictability, and while it felt safe, it also felt like a form of slow suffocation. The transformation didn't happen overnight. Sarah didn't quit her job the next day or make any dramatic changes. Instead, she began what she called micro-adventures, small experiments in stepping outside her comfort zone. She took a pottery class, even though she'd never considered herself artistic. She started hiking trails she'd never explored. She began saying yes to invitations she would normally decline because they felt too uncertain or outside her routine. What surprised Sarah most was that these small steps outside her comfort zone didn't just add excitement to her life, they changed how she saw herself. In pottery class, she discovered she loved creating something with her hands. On hiking trails, she found a sense of peace and connection to nature she'd forgotten existed. At social gatherings, she met people who expanded her perspective on what was possible. Each small adventure gave her more confidence to take slightly bigger ones. She volunteered for a project at work that stretched her skills. She planned a solo trip to a place she'd always wanted to visit. She had conversations with people whose lives looked different from hers, not to copy them, but to understand what authentic living looked like from different perspectives. The most profound shift came when Sarah realized that growth and security weren't opposites, they were dance partners. Real security came not from avoiding all risks, but from developing the confidence and skills to navigate uncertainty. Real safety came not from staying the same, but from becoming more adaptable, more resilient, more authentically herself. Eventually, Sarah did make bigger changes. She negotiated a more flexible schedule that allowed her to pursue photography, something that had emerged from her micro-adventures. She moved to a smaller apartment in a neighborhood that felt more aligned with who she was becoming. She even changed career paths, but by then, it felt less like a dramatic leap and more like a natural evolution. What strikes me most about Sarah's story is that she didn't escape the cycle of comfort by rejecting comfort entirely. She redefined what true comfort meant to her. Instead of comfort being about avoiding challenge, it became about feeling at home in her own skin. Instead of safety meaning never changing, it meant being confident in her ability to grow and adapt. Eventually, Sarah did make bigger changes. She negotiated a more flexible schedule that allowed her to pursue photography, something that had emerged from her micro-adventures. She moved to a smaller apartment in a neighborhood that felt more aligned with who she was becoming. She even changed career paths, but by then, it felt less like a dramatic leap and more like a natural evolution. What strikes me most about Sarah's story is that she didn't escape the cycle of comfort by rejecting comfort entirely. She redefined what true comfort meant to her. Instead of comfort being about avoiding challenge, it became about feeling at home in her own skin. Instead of safety meaning never changing, it meant being confident in her ability to grow and adapt. Here's what transforms everything about escaping the cycle of comfort. The problem isn't that you're too comfortable, it's that you've settled for a counterfeit version of comfort that's actually keeping you from experiencing genuine peace and fulfillment. Most people think the opposite of comfort is discomfort, so they believe that growth requires constantly pushing themselves into unpleasant situations. But this misses the deeper truth. The real opposite of life-draining comfort is life-giving challenge. The real opposite of stagnant safety is dynamic security. The real opposite of resigned settling is aligned striving. Think about a tree. A tree that's never exposed to wind will actually become weak and unstable. The stress of wind resistance is what causes a tree to develop strong, deep roots and flexible, resilient branches. But a tree that's constantly battered by hurricane-force winds will also struggle to thrive. The tree flourishes when it experiences the right kind of challenge. Enough wind resistance to grow strong, but not so much that it's constantly in survival mode. This reveals something profound about human growth. We don't need to choose between comfortable stagnation and constant struggle. We need to find what I call optimal challenge, the sweet spot where we're stretched enough to grow but not so overwhelmed that we retreat into protective mode. The cycle of comfort keeps us in a state of under-challenge, where life becomes predictable but empty. Many people try to escape this by swinging to the opposite extreme, seeking constant intensity and drama. But that's just another form of imbalance. True freedom comes from developing the wisdom to know what kinds of challenges serve your growth and the courage to choose them consciously. While most people try to escape comfort by forcing themselves into situations that feel overwhelming or inauthentic, true liberation comes from understanding that your discomfort with your current comfort is actually your inner guidance system pointing you toward what's next. Your restlessness isn't a problem to solve, it's intelligence to follow. The path forward isn't about becoming someone completely different. It's about becoming more fully who you already are underneath all the layers of conditioning, expectation, and compromise. It's about rediscovering the parts of yourself that got buried under the weight of being responsible and being practical and being realistic. Nature shows us this principle everywhere. A seed doesn't struggle to become a tree, it simply follows its inner blueprint for growth, responding to the conditions around it and adapting while staying true to its essential nature. The seed doesn't reject being a seed in order to become a tree. It transforms from within, using everything it is to become everything it's meant to be. This is what escaping the comfort cycle really means. It's not about rejecting your current life or becoming someone you're not. It's about awakening to your own inner blueprint for growth and having the courage to follow it, even when it leads you into unfamiliar territory. Most people stay stuck because they're waiting for someone to give them permission to want more, to grow, to change. But the only permission you need is your own recognition that the life force within you is always calling you toward expansion, and that answering that call isn't selfish, it's sacred. The journey out of the comfort cycle follows natural principles that work with your psychology rather than against it. Like any natural process, it can't be forced, but it can be supported, nurtured, and allowed to unfold. The first foundation is developing the ability to recognize when you're operating from authentic choice versus habitual patterns. Most of the time, we're not even aware that we're in a comfort cycle. We think we're making conscious decisions, but we're actually just following the deepest grooves in our mental and emotional landscape. Start by noticing when you feel most alive versus when you feel most automatic. Pay attention to the difference between activities that energize you and activities that drain you, even if they're comfortable. Notice when you feel expanded versus when you feel contracted. This isn't about judging these different states, but about developing the awareness to recognize them. Create what I call awareness anchors throughout your day, moments when you pause and ask yourself, right now, am I choosing this or just doing it out of habit? How does this feel in my body? If I were being completely honest, what do I actually want right now? These small moments of conscious check-in begin to interrupt the automatic patterns that keep you stuck. The second foundation is learning to take action that comes from your authentic desires rather than your conditioned fears. This doesn't mean being reckless or ignoring practical considerations. It means developing the discernment to distinguish between wise caution and paralyzing fear, between genuine contentment and resigned settling. Start with what I call micro-movements, small actions that feel aligned with who you're becoming even if you're not sure where they'll lead. Maybe it's having a conversation you've been avoiding, learning something you've always been curious about, or saying no to something that doesn't truly serve you. The key is to focus on the next right step rather than trying to figure out the entire path. When you take action from alignment, even small actions, they tend to open doors you couldn't have imagined. When you take action from fear or obligation, even big actions often lead nowhere meaningful. The third foundation is understanding that real transformation follows natural rhythms, not forced timelines. The comfort cycle often exists because we tried to change too fast in the past and got overwhelmed, so we retreated back into what felt safe. True growth happens in seasons. There are times for planting new ideas and possibilities, times for nurturing and developing what you've planted, times for harvesting the results of your growth, and times for allowing things to lie fallow while new possibilities emerge. Learn to work with your natural rhythms rather than against them. Some days you'll feel ready to take bold action, other days you'll need to rest and integrate. Some periods of your life will be about external expansion, others will be about inner development. Fighting these natural cycles creates resistance and exhaustion. Working with them creates sustainable progress. The fourth foundation is allowing your authentic self to emerge and express itself in the world. The comfort cycle often exists because we've learned to suppress or hide parts of ourselves that feel too risky, too different, or too much for others to handle. But your authentic nature isn't something you need to create, it's something you need to uncover. It's been there all along, waiting for the right conditions to emerge. As you develop awareness, take aligned action, and practice patient cultivation, your natural expression begins to emerge organically. This isn't about dramatic personality changes or forcing yourself to be someone you're not. It's about allowing the qualities that are most essentially you to have more space in your life. Maybe you're naturally creative, but have been suppressing that in favor of being practical. Maybe you're naturally adventurous, but have been playing it safe. Maybe you're naturally contemplative, but have been staying busy to avoid feeling too much. Your authentic expression is the natural result of the other three foundations. As you become more aware, take more aligned action, and practice patience with the process, who you really are begins to shine through more clearly. Living these principles isn't about perfection, it's about progress. You don't escape the comfort cycle once and never return. Instead, you develop the skills to recognize when you're slipping back into old patterns and the tools to consciously choose growth over stagnation. There will be times when you naturally need more stability and times when you're ready for more adventure. The difference is that instead of unconsciously defaulting to the safest option, you develop the wisdom to choose consciously based on what serves your growth and authentic expression. Some days, the most aligned action might be to rest. Some days, it might be to take a bold leap. Some days, it might be to have a difficult conversation or to create something new. The key is developing the inner compass that helps you recognize what's authentic for you in each moment. As you practice these foundations, you'll notice that your relationship with uncertainty begins to shift. Instead of uncertainty feeling threatening, it starts to feel like possibility. Instead of change feeling scary, it starts to feel like evolution. Instead of challenges feeling overwhelming, they start to feel like invitations to grow. You'll also notice that your definition of success begins to change. Instead of success being about achieving specific external outcomes, it becomes about living in alignment with your values and expressing your authentic nature. This doesn't mean you stop having goals or ambitions, but they become expressions of who you are rather than attempts to prove who you think you should be. The most beautiful part of this journey is that as you become more authentically yourself, you give others permission to do the same. Your willingness to step outside your comfort zone, to grow, to change, to become more fully yourself creates a ripple effect that touches everyone around you. Remember, the point isn't to eliminate all comfort from your life. True comfort, the kind that comes from being at home in your own skin, from living in alignment with your values, from expressing your authentic nature, this is something to cultivate, not escape. The cycle you're escaping isn't comfort itself, but the counterfeit version that keeps you small, stuck, and separate from your own aliveness. You're not trying to become comfortable with discomfort, you're trying to become comfortable with growth, with uncertainty, with the natural expansion of life itself. This is your invitation to step into the full expression of who you're meant to be, not because your current life is wrong, but because there's more of you waiting to emerge. Not because you should want more, but because some part of you already does. Not because growth is required, but because it's your birthright. The path out of the comfort cycle isn't a destination, it's a way of living. It's choosing growth over stagnation, authenticity over safety, aliveness over automation. It's trusting that the life force within you knows the way forward even when you can't see the entire path. Your comfort zone isn't your enemy, it's your launching pad. The question isn't whether you'll face uncertainty and challenge. The question is whether you'll face them consciously, as conscious choices in service of your growth, or unconsciously as circumstances that happen to you. The choice is always yours, and the choice is always available. Right now, in this moment, you can choose to take one small step outside the familiar patterns that no longer serve you. You can choose to listen to that quiet voice that's been calling you towards something more. You can trust that you're capable of navigating whatever comes next. The cycle of comfort ends the moment you realize that your greatest security comes not from avoiding all risk, but from developing confidence in your ability to handle whatever life brings. Your greatest comfort comes not from staying the same, but from becoming more fully yourself. This is your time. This is your moment. This is your invitation to step into the full expression of who you're meant to be.